FanDuel's Tom Vecchio is known as many things. The man that consistently provides the Monday prop perspective here on the Early Line. The jack of all trades, because he's going to have a thought and a bet on the hardwood in the NBA throughout the entirety of the regular season, on the ice in the National Hockey League, football during that time of year, and the home run prop king in Major League Baseball. And Vecchio, we got oh so close from having just a focus on a Monday MLB card before the weekend got started. But the Mavericks prevail in game number 4 to give us a game 5 tonight in the NBA Finals. And the Oilers blow past the Panthers on Saturday to force a game 5 in the Stanley Cup Final as well. So the jack of all trades at least is alive for just a few more days.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We are winding down to that time of year where it's just going to be baseball. We'll be, at that point, projecting forward for football, but a few more games in both the NBA and the NHL. Let's roll.
Let's roll into Game 5 tonight in Beantown of the 2024 NBA Finals. The Celtics back home, 1 win away from championship 18. The Mavericks trying to get back home as well and force a game number 6. 6.5-point spread in favor of the Celtics. Total now at 209 and a hook. Vecchio, what are the numbers telling you about how Game 5 is expected to play out?
I think we're getting a little bit more respect for the Mavericks just based on, where they are at 6.5. That number would have been a little bit bigger, or was a little bit bigger earlier in the series. Tonight's game, I think, is all about the under. I think both teams are going to play things super tight. Wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of turnovers, a lot of missed shots. I think taking unders is, across the board is the best way to go for most props overall. I will say there's one area that I think there's a clear exploit in the market. Let's say you're interested in the Mavericks money line, which is at plus 220. Right? Let's just say someone out there is interested in the money line. If they win tonight, that means the series is guaranteed to go at least 6 games. 6-game series price is at plus 550. So I'm not sitting here saying I love the Mavericks money line tonight, but in theory, if they win, the series has to go at least 6 games, which is at plus 550, which is so much bigger than plus 220. So keep that in mind. There's still some exploits to take advantage of in the market if you think the series gets extended.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of those Celtics Game 5 player props here on their home court. Jayson Tatum, 27.5 points listed here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Jaylen Brown, 24.5 listed. But outside of that, or if you want to include those two, who are we looking at tonight from a prop perspective for the Boston Celtics?
I'm going to Tatum over 9.5 rebounds. That's sitting at minus 120. And, what we saw in the last game, we have to kind of throw out just because everyone across the board played far less minutes. Tatum played 27 minutes when he's up at 42 and 45 minutes than previous games. Like, we have to basically throw out what he did in the most recent game. Seeing 11, 9, and 6 rebounds in the first 3, that's a little bit more comfortable what I'm seeing from him. Again, tonight's not about scoring. Tonight's about defense. Tonight's about that extra effort. Tonight really should be, I want to say like a Tatum legacy game, but if this series gets extended to 6 games, at that point, the Mavericks are playing with house money, knowing that they won that game and they're back at home. So this has to be a maximum effort from Tatum and the Celtics. Everything they learned over the past 2 seasons, losing to the Heat in the conference finals, losing to the Warriors in the finals 2 years ago, this is the game for them to put the piece together and finally come away with the win when it matters most. It has to be a big Tatum game, not from scoring, from doing everything else.
Vecchio, I think that's a fair assessment. This core, led by Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, was going to have their season success defined by an NBA championship and winning the Larry O'Brien Trophy, and you called it a legacy game. You said the impetus is on Jayson Tatum to lead the Celtics tonight, and you think he goes over 9.5 rebounds. He has a higher points prop than that of Jaylen Brown. So, Vecchio, make it make sense to us. Why is Jaylen Brown a minus 230 favorite to win the NBA Finals MVP award?
Well, I was on Brown in a few spots on MVP prior to the series, and it comes down to the impactful shots. As we saw as he won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, if he's making game-winning shots, a shot that sends it to overtime to take the lead, those are more important when it comes to winning the series and winning games rather than just simply averaging more points overall, averaging more rebounds. So when it comes to Brown, his importance when it comes to highlight real moments, whatever you want to call it, that stands out to voters rather than, this player simply had a ton of points. They won games because X player hit a shot, and that's really what we're seeing from Brown right now.
If we're taking a look at from that Mavericks perspective here, obviously we know the headliners on their team, Kyrie Irving and also Luka Doncic. Are we looking at any prop perspectives from below them that could certainly impact the market tonight? How are we feeling about the Mavericks and their props?
I don't mind some Derek Lively rebounding props just because he's been so good overall. But really my favorite prop for the Mavericks is going to be Kyrie Irving under 23.5 points. 12, 16, 35, 21 points is what we've seen from him in the 4 games this series. Going over this mark just once, and notably the first 2 games struggling big time in the road. And if I'm not expecting points overall, those points are going to be distributed among the entire team. It's not like we're going to be seeing, yes, maybe 30-ish points from Luka, but if Luka and Kyrie are both going over, that means I should be more interested in the Mavericks money line rather than just a single player prop, because that would put them in a spot to win rather than just simply taking over 23.5 points. So it's about under for Kyrie tonight.
32.5 is the points prop for Luka Doncic, the highest entering game number 5. He has scored at least 27 in every game this series, but has not gone over 32.5, his series high, 32 back in game number 2. Vecchio, you mentioned what you thought was some value. If you think Dallas can keep this game competitive and maybe, just maybe, win its second straight to force a game 6, do you believe that truly happens outside of the value sprinkle, or do the Celtics win game number 5 and championship number 18 tonight?
I think the Celtics win, but they don't cover. And again, looking from a market standpoint and just in terms of finding exploits, I think there is a very clear spot to take if you have interest in the Mavericks. But again, ultimately, what the Celtics have learned over the past 2 seasons, they have put themselves in the spot that this is the time to shine. I think they win the game, they do not cover, and the game hits the under tonight.
How about this? Let's go back to the ice. In a game number 5, we're also going to talk about, similar to the NBA, back in Sunrise, Florida, the Panthers, a minus 137 money line price, a total of 5.5. Oilers-Panthers coming up on the deck here, Tom. How are we feeling about that game?
This game is very similar to what we saw for the NBA. Like, we can't take everything, we have to take it all with a grain of salt, I should say. A blowout in the most recent game. Players are seeing different ice times. Sergei Bobrovsky got pulled for the Panthers. Again, we have to kind of throw that out. Maybe look at a few parts here or there, but ultimately, tonight's all about the under. The Panthers are an elite defensive team. They've been here before. They've showed it throughout the season that when they make mistakes and correct it, the system that Paul Maurice has in place, their head coach, has proven over the past 2 years to constantly put them in a spot to win games. Sasha Barkov has done a phenomenal job outside of that last game at shutting down McDavid and Draisaitl overall, limiting their chances. The Panthers are at home. They have the preferred line change, which means Barkov will always be in a good spot to counter either McDavid or Draisaitl. Panthers come away with the win and the under hits tonight. I would be ultimately interested in under 4.5 and alt under, because we're not going to see a ton of scoring tonight.
Yeah. Both games in Edmonton over, both games in Sunrise under. And it was a very interesting conversation on Saturday with a man called Sergei Bobrovsky getting pulled after allowing 5 goals and facing only 11 shots. He has been the Conn Smythe Award favorite. Tom, if tomorrow night back in Sunrise we do see an under, do you think Sergei Bobrovsky ends up as your Conn Smythe Award winner?
Ultimately, he probably does, especially if it's a shutout or only 1 goal, only giving up 1 goal. Barkov, I think, has no value. As I said before, I was on Carter Verhaeghe coming into the series, but Evan Rodriguez up there at a massive number leads the series right now in goals. So if he just keeps that magic going, I'm not going to say he's the best goal scorer in the Panthers because he's not, but if he keeps that magic going, a game-winning goal, he could certainly maybe sneak a Conn Smythe trophy.
Listen, right now, Sergei Bobrovsky has only allowed 1 goal in Sunrise, but we'll see what happens in game number 5 tomorrow. The Panthers 1 win away from their first ever Stanley Cup in franchise history. Edmonton trying to make the long trip back up to Alberta after winning game 5 in Sunrise. Quickly here, Vecchio, Paul Skenes on the bump today in Pittsburgh. Ooh. What's your approach to Skenes and that strikeout prop of 7.5?
If it gets bet up to 8.5, I think there's value in taking the under simply because the number's too high, and fading the public is always a pretty solid thing to do. I would also say that Skenes for 150 plus strikeouts for the entire season is at minus 113. If he stays healthy and they don't limit his innings, that could something that would be in play, as the season comes to an end.
That's why he's the jack of all trades on full display on this Monday. Vecchio, thank you. More of the Early Line next. Game number 5 of the 2024 NBA Finals tonight inside TD Garden. After getting blown out by 38, the Celtics' silver lining is the chance to win championship number 18, the most in NBA history, in front of the home crowd. The Mavericks head back to Beantown, trying to get back to the Lone Star State, not to start their summer, but to force game number 6. It's a 6.5-point spread in favor of the Seas. Our first total, under 210, 209 and a hook for a potential elimination game and series clincher. Donnie, how do you see game number 5 playing out?
Just based on the odds, right? It should be the Boston Celtics. But a fan interest as we are, we're rooting for game number 6 and possibly game number 7 because it's a lot of fun to have it play out. The interesting part about this, too, is every once in a while handicapping throws you a wrench. We talked about heading into the NBA Finals and maybe how long these teams were all for and what you actually would be getting at a game number 1 because it's outside the norms of the NBA betting season. You're playing every other night, every third night, most likely, and you sort of stay in that rhythm. It's okay, let me watch it play out. But also from a perspective of we just saw game number 4, which was an absolute shellacking here of 40 points for the Mavericks over the Celtics. So you're saying to yourself, is that momentum going to carry over? Or the Boston Celtics just came in that game with the wrong mindset in a closeout game where they can win an NBA championship? That's baffling to me. But the one thing that we do know, and you can rest on your laurels, is typically you are a better home team. And Ben has pointed out so many times throughout the length of this NBA season how good Boston is at home. That means something here. The home crowd on your side, a chance to clinch an NBA championship on your own floor. You're supposed to get that job done tonight. So if I had to take a side, it would be the Boston Celtics because I'm not going to tell you, well, Ben, I think the Boston Celtics win. I just don't think they can cover the 6.5. That's dumb. It's not 13.5, 15.5, where you could expect a double-digit victory and still get the close. But the one thing I do like, though, and Tom Vecchio also brought this out, 209.5 to the under. Everything means so much more in a closeout game. You also take a look at the last game. If that 209.5 price was still there, stays under the total despite you have the Mavericks getting over 120 points. I look for both of these teams around 100 points. I just don't think they're going to be able to get to that 210 number to beat that. I think the Celtics win this game and the game stays under the total, but I would love to be wrong on the Celtics side to get us a game number 6, Ben.
And if Boston does bounce back and wins an NBA championship tonight, you would expect a much better defensive performance than what we saw in game number 4 on Friday, getting blown out in the opening half and then letting things really get off the rails. But we have not seen either team, or both teams, I should say, reach 100 points in any of the 4 games of this series. One team has scored 100 in all 4 games. We have not seen both clubs reach the century mark in the same game so far. It has led to 4 games, 4 unders. All 4 of the previous totals started the game at least higher than 210. This one under at 209 and a hook. I said it in the Fade the Public poll. I say it again here. Boston laying 6.5. The Celtics have played 51 games inside TD Garden throughout this season, both in the regular season and throughout this postseason run. They've won 45 of 51. They are 27-21-3 against the spread, favored in every single game in Beantown. And the Celtics have laid duds throughout this NBA playoff run. It has been a story for the Celtics this year and in previous seasons when they were expected to contend for an NBA championship. Game 2 against Miami. Game 2 against Cleveland. What did the Celtics do? Go on the road in Game 3, win and cover as at least a 7-point favorite. Game 1, they escaped in overtime of the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana. It was one of their biggest duds to start off that series. The only cover they had against the Pacers was in Game 2, winning by double digits and covering for the first time as a single-digit favorite at home inside TD Garden throughout this playoff run. And Game 4 was certainly a dud in Dallas. I expect the Celtics to cover 6.5 tonight and win championship number 18. Now let's get to the individuals that will indicate what the outcome is. For Boston, it's the comparison of the Jays. Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, 27.5 points for Tatum, 24.5 points for Jaylen Brown. And Donnie, it goes right back into the NBA Finals MVP conversation. Every prop on your screen that Jayson Tatum has is higher than that of Jaylen Brown, and yet he is the underdog in the NBA Finals MVP conversation. Brown minus 230, Tatum plus 220.
Yeah, I'm going to put my chips in Jayson Tatum's basket here. You take a look at that 27.5. I do think he goes over that. And again, maybe they get beat by 40 points and he sits the entirety of the second half. Maybe that's going to happen again. Obviously, we don't think that's going to be the case. This game is going to be won or lost based on Jayson Tatum shooting 25-plus times. I also like Jayson Tatum. It is expensive at the FanDuel Sportsbook, over 2.5 3-point shots made at a minus 146 price. So that also would correlate into, I do think Jayson Tatum is going to be the NBA Finals MVP when it's all said and done, because of a better performance than obviously Brown would have tonight. But also Derek White over 3.5 3-point shots, not as expensive. It's at a plus 126 point. I can see him getting down with 4 or more 3-point shots. I always like the B guys at home because they tend to shoot a little and play a little bit better at home. So that's where I'm going. Tatum over threes, Tatum points, Derek White over threes.
And we'll get to Luka Doncic in just a moment at 32.5, but 23.5 is the number for Kyrie Irving. That was way too complimentary of the Boston crowd in the first 2 games of this NBA Finals. Whatever he needs to do to get into his bag and go over 23.5 tonight, albeit hopefully not just slander people necessarily, Kyrie Irving should do that, because, Donnie, if he doesn't go over 23.5, I don't think the Mavericks even cover as a 6.5-point dog in Beantown tonight.
No, he's got to, again, this game is going to be based on the superstars. You want to take a look at that 60-point number we always talk about with Luka Doncic and Kyrie. They got to clear that hurdle. They have to do that tonight. But also saying the same thing on the opposite side. If you get good performances out of Luka and Kyrie, you know who has to have good performances? The J brothers there over there in Boston. And I expect good performances all the way around. Well, Donnie, why aren't you just taking the over at this point? One of those two things isn't going to happen where both of these stars go toe-to-toe. I think it's going to be Luka, and I think it's going to be Tatum here.
Good performances could also be on the defensive end, and Drew Holiday should be a part of our conversation as well. We'll talk a little bit more about the props, give you one final best bet on this Monday ahead of game number 5 of the 2024 NBA Finals tonight inside TD Garden. Now, game number 5 of the NBA Finals tonight, Boston 1 win away from championship number 18. Can the Mavericks do what has nearly been impossible, and that's be down an 0-3 series deficit in a best-of-7 and win 2 consecutive games? I think if that happens, Donnie, Luka Doncic has to go off once again. He has scored 27 or more in all 4 games of this 2024 NBA Finals set to this point, including 30-plus in both of the 2 games in Boston, but never over 32.5. I like the number on Luka Doncic tonight, not only because he scored 30-plus in both in Beantown, but you look at 27 in Game 3. If he hadn't fouled out with 4:12 remaining in regulation, probably goes over 32.5. And if the game was even remotely more competitive on Friday, finishing with 29 points, he goes over 32 and a hook as well. If the Mavericks even keep this game close and competitive, Luka Doncic, in my estimation, must go over 32 and a hook.
Yeah, and also, let's ramp it up a little bit. You're getting some pretty good price points here on a triple-double for Luka at a 5-to-1 price tonight. You know he's going to be hunting around that number. Obviously, we know he's going to score more than 10 points, and you just need one of those quarters, right? Like the first quarter. 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and on the way you go, because we are expecting this. Nobody is looking at the Mavericks going on the road going like, man, Gafford was the key to that equation. Never saw that coming, boy. 33 points. What? You know what I mean? We're not doing that. Like, it's about the upper echelon players. Like, this game is going to be won or lost whether Luka Doncic shows up. Now, the one thing we know, he's going to show up tonight, but how efficient is he going to be? If he shoots 28 times, can he make 18 of those shots? We'll find that out. But if you are a big game hunting, Luka's the guy to go to, because you hear me say this a lot. There's no way at the end of the game, Luka's like, the ball just didn't get to me. I'm sorry I couldn't help my team out. He will make sure that ball's in his hand, and I expect a big performance tonight, maybe a look at a triple-double at that 5-to-1 price.
P.J. Washington was Dallas's second leading scorer in the first 2 games of this NBA championship set in Boston. That cannot happen. It's got to be Kyrie Irving tonight. 23 and a hook is his points prop. In the first 2 games, of course, we saw Kristaps Porzingis, and KP was a huge factor in Beantown. We have not seen him in Game 3 or Game 4. The Celtics are reporting kind of through people that he's a break of glass emergency case tonight if absolutely necessary. We don't expect to see Kristaps Porzingis in Game 5. And in the absence of KP in Games 3 and 4, Derek Lively has been huge for Dallas. At home in Dallas, at least 11 points in both Games 3 and 4, at least 12 boards as well. I liked him to go over either 8.5 points or 8.5 rebounds on Friday. He did both for a second consecutive game.